This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of the brand new PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, as well as PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, PDF Pen for iPhone, PDF Pen for iPad, Text Expander Touch, and Disc Label. Find out more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome back to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this time Joe Kissell is back. He's got another new Take Control book, Take Control of 1Password, which I'm quite anxious to hear about simply because it's one of my favorite utilities. Joe, you know, I eat dinner, I eat breakfast, I sleep, I take the trash out. You don't do anything except write books. It's amazing.
It often seems that way, doesn't it? These last couple of weeks in particular, I have done, honestly, very little but write books. So I'm tired, I'm hungry, and there is so much trash here, you wouldn't believe. But you know, shortly after this interview airs, maybe the same day, I'm going on vacation. Well, ooh. I'm going to Hawaii. It's not really a vacation; it's a working vacation because I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements. But at least I'll be in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, congratulations.
There will be some rest, yes,
that's good.
And and large fruity drinks. So yeah.
Well, if you leave the keys under the mat, I'm sure somebody'd stop by and take out the trash for you.
I'm sure they would be happy to take much more than the trash.
Yeah.
We have an alarm and we know how to use it.
Well, somehow that sort of ties, I guess, into security, and that ties into 1Password, which, as I said, is one of my absolute favorite go-to utilities. It's one of those that not only gives me security, but it makes my life easier. And boy, that's an interesting combination. And you have a habit of taking utilities that I think I know, or at least I enjoy, and giving me so much more to learn about them. And of course, now on top of this, we have 1Password 4, the brand new version. Right. So there would seem to be a lot here to talk about. Is there a lot to talk about?
There is a lot to talk about. As with many of my books, I sat down to start writing this book, and I thought, well, I'll be lucky if I get 50 pages out. And then, you get to like page 135 and I still have a list of things to write. And like, wow, there's a lot here. And there were still a lot of things that I either, left out or glossed over or, whatever, because there is so much to know. So it's a deceptively, it looks very simple. It looks like there's not a whole lot to it, but there's a lot of stuff in 1Password, a lot of things you can do. It really rewards exploring and digging around and looking for little things to click. And you say, oh, well, I didn't know it had one of those too. And so it's a great tool. I've been using it almost since it first came out in whatever it was, 2006 or something. And it's something that I rely on very heavily.
For those who are uninitiated, who don't know what it is or why they should get it, can you give us just a 30-second elevator pitch on
Sure.
how
so,
and why?
So 1Password is an app that stores your usernames and passwords, and other stuff too, but we'll get to that. But mainly it's about your usernames and passwords. And although you can use them in a lot of different places, the most probably common and important place you'll use them is on a web page. So basically, it's a way of securely storing all of your usernames and passwords. When you get to a web page that needs your credentials, you hit a keyboard shortcut or click a button, and it fills them in and you're done. Now, of course, it's not unique. I mean, Safari can do part of that too, and most other browsers have built-in password management systems. What's cool about 1Password is it can store all kinds of stuff that the competitors can't necessarily store and fill in. It works even if you have 2 or 3 or 10 different sets of credentials for a particular site. And it syncs your stuff across all your different browsers on all your platforms. So like Chrome, okay, Chrome's great. It has a password manager built in, and it'll sync to copies of Chrome on my other platforms, but it won't sync with Safari or Firefox. And Safari can sync its stuff, but not with Chrome. So one of the reasons I love 1Password is that it gives me a central location for all of my stuff, my passwords, credit cards, contact information, all kinds of other stuff, stores it securely, syncs to everywhere, and I can just always get at all of my stuff, and in a way that's really a lot simpler than what the other tools do.
Okay, great.
Oh, and of course, the name 1Password comes from the fact that you just have to remember one password from now. The password that unlocks 1Password now gives you access to all your other stuff. So instead of having to memorize dozens or hundreds of passwords, you just remember one. So that's the idea.
And Joe, we have to cover this part at this particular time. How secure is 1Password for storing my passwords? Because we are going to sync it via Dropbox. We are going to have it out there. Theoretically, it'll be, I don't know technically if it's on 1Password servers or not. I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
But how comfortable can we feel putting our credit cards and all our logins and everything in there?
Right. Well, let me answer that in a few different ways. So, first of all, one of the things that has happened in the transition from 1Password 3 to 1Password 4 is that they've adopted a new keychain format which uses a more powerful version of encryption. So they used to use 128-bit AES, now they use 256-bit. So it's stronger. Another thing they're doing now is they're encrypting everything, not just the passwords and usernames themselves, but even like the titles and URLs. So everything that you put in there is encrypted. So it's very, very strong encryption. It's encryption that, as far as anyone in the general public or the security community knows, has never been cracked. We don't know if the NSA has a quantum supercomputer or whatever, but as far as anyone knows, it is solid and effectively uncrackable. Now, as for the cloud syncing, you can put your stuff in Dropbox, you can put it on iCloud, or you can even use, to a certain extent, other services such as SugarSync or SpiderOak or Google Drive or one of those things to sync, at least between Macs and PCs, not iOS devices, of course. But you don't have to. If that makes you nervous to put your information in the cloud, even though it's strongly encrypted, you don't have to. You can sync stuff between your Mac and your iOS device using Wi-Fi now. So that's a relatively new thing. You can sync over USB if you really want to, but that's kind of hideous. So if you're nervous about the cloud, that's okay. You can still use 1Password and you can still sync your data. It's not quite as quick or convenient, but it can totally be done.
Okay. So now you've made me feel secure, even more secure now with the new 1Password 4. So let's get into, I guess, why do we need this, and why is it a good idea, and what changes has 1Password 4 brought?
Okay, so to reiterate and encapsulate sort of all the things I've ever said about passwords. There are a lot of bad guys out there trying to steal your stuff. Sometimes they're just randomly probing for weaknesses, and sometimes they're doing more targeted attacks. But anyway, there have been all these incidents where big companies, including Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and whatever, have had their at least some of their passwords stolen or leaked or hacked or compromised in some way. And so you can do two things to protect yourself when this happens. One thing you can do is to make sure that all of your passwords are different from all of your other passwords. That way, if one of your passwords somehow gets out, then at least you have contained the damage and only that one particular account will be, at risk. The other thing you can do is to choose super long random passwords that no human being would ever guess, and that would take a computer so long to guess that any reasonable person would give up long before they've gotten to your password. And what that will do is that will limit your exposure if an encrypted version of your password gets stolen. So not the plain text version that you can actually read, but some encrypted hash gets stolen. It will reduce the risk that somebody will be able to turn that into a real password. And if someone were to get a hold of your data file or direct access to your account, it would make it much, much harder for them to break in by brute force. So what you're trying to do is just eliminate the possibility that someone could guess your password using automated means. The problem with these great big, long, random passwords is they're impossible to remember and a real pain to fill in. So that's why you want to use a password manager. 1Password is the one I use. There are lots of other ones. And you click a button, it says, give me a whatever. If you want a 50-character random password, fine, you can get 50 characters. If you think that 15 is enough, then you can use 15. But as long as you feel like the password should be, you can have a random password generated, and you don't have to look at it or memorize it. 1Password memorizes it. When you need it, you just say, fill that in for me, and it's done. So it's a way of making sure you're following these really good, wise security practices of having all your passwords be unique, having all of them be strong, without making it any more of a burden for you. So you don't have to memorize anything more. You just have that one password, you have your little keystroke, it fills in the form, and you're done, and you just don't have to think about it. So that's why you want to use a password manager in general. As for 1Password in particular, they have versions for Windows, for Mac, for iOS, for Android, and there's even a way that you can get at your data from any computer with an internet connection and a web browser using this thing they call 1Password Anywhere. So it's the most possible ways you can get at your data is part of it. It's been around for a long time. Their security is very good. Their customer support is very good. They have a lot of really cool features. It's not the only game in town. And if somebody else says, "Oh, I like Dashlane," or "I like LastPass," and hey, great, more power to you. Use the tool you like. This is the one I like, and I liked it enough to write a book about it.
Yeah, and I want to touch on the support thing, because this is one utility that you really need support for. If anything would go wrong, now let's be real clear here. Agile Bits cannot help you recover your 1Password, your lost 1Password. If you lose that, you're hosed, when we're sorry, but it's just done.
So what I recommend is actually just having it tattooed on your forehead. Yeah. So that way you're never, ever going to lose it, and you just carry around a mirror. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking on the bottom of my foot, but anyway.
Yeah, but then, you got to take off your shoes and your socks. I mean, that's so inconvenient.
Yeah.
No, you definitely want to take care in picking that 1Password. I, of course, talk about that in the book.
Sure.
I have some tips. Agile Bits also has some tips on how they recommend choosing that 1Password. It's not a bad idea to actually write it on a piece of paper and put that piece of paper in a safe place, because if you're entrusting your most important data to it, you really don't want to forget that.
Yeah, and it also, the random password generator, I love, because it for some reason, I think it's difficult for most mere humans to have a truly random password.
Oh yeah, it's basically impossible. You can come up with a random looking password.
Yes.
But truly random is basically impossible for a human being. It's actually even kind of hard for a computer, but you can at least get pretty close.
Yeah, so I know there are a couple things that I have locked up with 45 and 47 character passwords, and it gives me a headache to think about trying to type those in. But with 1Password, it's click, click, boom, and I'm in, and it just makes you feel so much more secure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I think you started out by saying, this may not seem like as big an update as it should feel like, or as it is. Can you give us an idea of what's in there, what's changed, and where to look for what?
Sure. It's a curious update. First of all, I should say it's a free update for anyone who bought it through the Mac App Store or anyone who bought it direct from Agile Bits since January 1st. So if you shouldn't be held, if you have purchased it relatively recently, you shouldn't be held back because there's an upgrade fee. And a lot of people are going to look at the list of new features and they're going to go, "Oh, that's kind of cool," and "Oh, that was a clever addition. I'm kind of glad it does that now." But they're like, "Okay, but where's the big thing? Where's the really, cool new big thing?" And there are some cool new things, but there aren't really fantastic, mind-blowing new things. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that it really had the important features to start with. One of the reasons is that I happen to know Agile Bits has some plans for the very near future of things they would like to add. But in order to be able to add those really cool things, they couldn't just add on to the existing code base. They had to rewrite the entire application. This was a gargantuan undertaking. It took them years to do. So when you open 1Password 4, it's going to look very familiar, but it is absolutely brand new code. It's all new. So some people are going to look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, what did they do with my, thing? There are some things that were in 1Password 3 that either aren't in 1Password 4 or don't look the same or are harder to find or whatever. And I know that a lot of people are going to be a little, at first, like, wait, you can't take away this thing that I really love. And I have sort of three responses to that. The first one is, don't panic. Everything will be fine. The second response is, read the book, because there are a lot of things that you might think are missing, but they've just been sort of reorganized or renamed or changed a little bit, and they're effectively still there. And the third response is, I have been privy to some of Agile Bit's future development plans, and although I can't reveal them, I can tell you it's going to be great. I know that there are a lot of smaller sort of bug fix releases coming soon. I also know that they're planning a quite significant sort of version 4.1 in the relatively near future. And those updates are going to make a lot of those initial concerns go away. Of course, these will be free updates. So if there is a real concern that you look at it and you're like, I really had to have that one thing, be patient. In a couple of months, you'll probably have it.
This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software for the Mac, iPhone, and iPad. Smile has just released the brand new PDF Pen Scan Plus for the iPhone and iPad. Now, you can use your iDevice to scan receipts, documents, and more anywhere you are. PDF Pen Scan Plus automatically detects page edges and crops the scan to fit, allows you to enhance the scan to be more readable, and adjust scan resolution for color, grayscale, or text. But that's just the beginning. You can also perform optical character recognition, known as OCR, on the document right there on the spot to create searchable PDF documents that can then be emailed, exported, or stored in Evernote, Dropbox, and other cloud services. Text becomes selectable and can be copied to other applications, and 16 different languages are supported by OCR. If you thought PDF Pen was essential for your iPhone or iPad before, you will be blown away by the power and convenience of PDF Pen Scan Plus. Get it now at a special introductory price on the iOS App Store, or visit smilesoftware.com for more information. Smile. Great software for your Mac, iPhone, and iPad. Thanks to Smile for sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. Joe, another thing I think that people are going to bring up is that with the reputed iCloud keychain in iOS 7, and Mavericks, that Apple is giving you a lot more security there, a lot more access, a lot more ease. So why should I invest my time and efforts and passwords in getting up and running and learning 1Password?
Well, the most important reason is to give me money so that I can build my mansion or feed my family.
Or get the trash taken out.
To get the trash taken out, yeah. No, okay, that's a great question. Now, as of the time that you're seeing this, we think that iOS keychain, iCloud keychain is not yet available to the public. Apple has demonstrated it, announced it. It's on their website, is coming soon. They have said that it will be part of Mavericks and part of iOS 7 at some point. So what Apple has demonstrated looks really great. It's syncing the keychain from your Mac across other Macs as well as iOS devices. So if you use Safari, for example, and you store passwords in Safari, and those go into your keychain, and so now you can get at those same passwords in Safari on your iPhone or iPad. Now that's great, because even though Safari on the iPhone could store passwords before, it didn't do a very good job at it, and it didn't sync between different devices. So now you can do that. It also has a built-in password generator. So if you need to come up with a new random password, you can now do that right within Safari, and it stores credit card information too. So that's all great. These are new things. I'm very happy that they're there. And the main reason I'm happy they're there is that it will make web browsing on an iPhone or an iPad much, much simpler. So congratulations to Apple. Well done. I'm glad they did that. Having said that, I will use iCloud Keychain, but it won't completely substitute for 1Password for me. I'll give you a few examples of why. First example is there are lots of sites for which I have multiple sets of credentials. I have multiple Apple IDs. I have multiple Google IDs. There are a bunch of places where I don't just have one username and password. So 1Password makes it easy for me to use multiple sets of credentials on a single site. Another reason is 1Password 4 now adds the ability to store multiple URLs in a single set of credentials. So maybe I have one username and password that I use both for store.apple.com and for www.icloud.com. So now I can combine those in a single item, which is very cool. When you need to examine your passwords, like, oh, what was my password for such and such because I need to copy it somewhere, I don't just need to fill it into a web form, it's really easy to do on 1Password. In Keychain Access on a Mac, it's still a hassle. Keychain Access still isn't a fun app to use. Credit cards. So Safari can now fill in your credit card information for you using iCloud Keychain. That's nice. But it won't fill in that 3-digit CVV number. You still have to pull your credit card out of your pocket and flip it over and type that in, which I don't get. Like if Safari and iCloud Keychain are secure enough to hold your credit card number and all of your passwords, it should be secure enough to hold those 3 other digits too. So I've never really got the logic behind that, but anyway, with 1Password you can totally do it if you want to. 1Password can also fill in multiple what they call identities, which is basically sets of contact information. So if you have like, here's my billing address, here's my shipping address, here's my work address, it can do all those things. And last but not least, although iCloud Keychain is great as long as you're in Safari, it doesn't help you for other browsers and other apps. It doesn't help you if you're on Windows. It doesn't help you if you're on Android. So 1Password still syncs to all those other places too. There are ways that you can combine 1Password and iCloud Keychain and use them both in tandem. I talk about that in the book. So I basically say, hey, use iCloud Keychain for what it's good for, and use 1Password for what it's good for, and be happy. You get the best of both worlds.
Okay, good. I can think of a lot of reasons that I like 1Password, and you covered pretty much all of them, over something else that's built into the operating system. Joe, I didn't want to lose this though. Do you cover the iOS version of 1Password in this book, or is this primarily for 1Password 4 for the Mac?
Right, so I do. Most of the book is about the Mac version and the Windows version. Now, the Windows version is sort of lagging behind the Mac version. The current Windows version was actually based on 1Password for Mac version 2. So that was, a few years ago. It still works and everything, but you look at it and go, oh, that looks a little bit dated, and it's clearly missing a lot of things. So I do talk about the Windows version. If you happen to be a Windows user, that's fine. You'll be able to get a lot of help in the book. I give more attention to the Mac version. And apart from syncing, which I cover syncing pretty thoroughly, I just have one chapter that is devoted to the 3 sort of mobile aspects of 1Password. So most of it is about the iOS version. There are a few pages on the Android version. The Android version 2 is showing its age. It's a little less capable. It's just a reader, not a full-fledged app. And of course, Agile Bits is planning on updating the Android version and planning on updating the Windows version. And also 1Password Anywhere, which I mentioned earlier, which is this way that you can get at your data through a web browser. So I don't cover the iOS version in quite so much detail as I do the Mac version, but I certainly tell you the major tricks, how to think about it, how to deal with some common frustrations and problems, how to get around and so forth. And yeah, I've learned a lot in the course of writing this book and really digging into these apps, especially the iOS apps, like, oh, really, it can do that. I didn't know that. That's kind of neat. So I have shared with the readers as many of these cool tips as I can.
That may be one of the best reasons to get a book like this. 1Password on its surface does just what a lot of what we've talked about, but there's so many interesting, cool little features and even cooler little tips and tricks about what you can put in there, what you can store there, why it's a good idea to do it, and the idea of having your really, really critical information available to you everywhere, all over the place at any time, and being able to log into any site securely is invaluable.
Yes, if I do say so myself. But I want to say, actually, there's another sort of whole angle to this book, and apart from like to make money, the real reason I wrote it. I love my wife dearly, and I would never say a mean thing about her.
Now be careful, because I know her, and she's a lovely lady.
Yes, she is. So sometimes I will happen to be nearby when my wife needs to log into a website, and I will see her look at the username and password field and just get this look in her face like, oh. And then she will dig, through folders in the Finder to locate keychain access, and she'll open it, and she'll dig through keychain access to find that item. And then she's like, oh, now I got to enter my key, my password for this, and then I got to select it and copy it and switch back to my browser and paste it in. And I'm watching this and I'm just like, no, please stop. Please don't do that. That just, it hurts too much to watch. And I say, honey, you do have a copy of 1Password on your Mac. And she'll say, yeah, I know, but I never really got into it. I couldn't like figure it out in 3 minutes, and it seemed like too confusing or too complex, and I didn't really quite get how it did things, and I'm not sure I trust it, and so I just stick with what I know. So I wrote this book for my beloved wife and for other people like her who maybe like bought 1Password on sale because they heard great things about it, and they installed it and they took a look at it and like, and I haven't really ever gotten into it. Maybe they just couldn't get over that initial hump of, I need to understand how this app thinks and how it makes me think and how I need to interact with it and how I get my first X number of passwords into it so that it can start being useful to me rather than being a burden that I need to like actively maintain. So a real big reason for this book is to turn people from 1Password owners into 1Password users and enthusiasts. I wanted to get you over that initial, I'm not thinking about this the right way, into, oh, okay, once I do this, then I can just, and the same, not just for like getting started initially, but there are certain things that even for longtime 1Password users make you sort of, okay, so like I need to change a password. Like I realize, oh yes, there was this one site that I was using a stupid insecure password for. I can't use baseball anymore. That's a bad idea. So I need to change this. So wait a minute. What exactly is the sequence of events here? Do I change it in 1Password first? Or do I change on the site first? And if I'm going to change it here, if I generate a new password here, but then I go to log into the site, then it's going to enter my new password instead of my old. Like this sort of, you get into this little logic puzzle of exactly what is the process to do an ordinary everyday activity like changing a password. So I just spell it out step by step. You go here, you do this. You go here, you do this. I bet you didn't know that when you click that button, this also happens. Yeah, see, it's making it easier than you thought. And then you do this, and you do this, do this. So I try to just simplify these things that would otherwise be frustrating because that's what I do. I help you take control of things like 1Password. So I'm hoping that by the time you finish reading this book, you will just sort of, the essence of 1Password will have lodged in your brain and be like, oh, now I get it. Yes, I see why it's cool, why there are t-shirts that say command / is my password. I really understand it now, and I agree that it's easier to use than Keychain Access, and it's easier to use than a lot of these other utilities.
Yeah, we've all seen that now. And some people don't even use Keychain Access. Some people have a text stored somewhere, and they copy and paste it, which is just...
I talked to a person at a user group a week or so ago who very proudly said, and this paper notebook that I'm holding in my hands contains all of my passwords, and I was just like aghast. Like, seriously, really, a paper notebook?
And you're carrying it with you.
How do you search in that? And what's the keyboard shortcut? And I hope you have that backed up, and a whole long list of other things. So.
Yeah, I can. I wish I could have had a picture of your face when that happened, because it was probably 11 different kinds of horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. So for all the wisdom and all the simplification of 1Password, what kind of price is the book, and where do we go get it, as if we didn't know?
Well, first of all, priceless.
Good.
But we do accept MasterCard, and we will be happy to charge your MasterCard $10 for the book if everything goes according to plan. And we're doing this in advance, so sometimes things don't quite align the way we expect. But if everything goes according to plan, you will be able to buy this book either from TakeControlBooks.com or from the Agile Bits website. For example, if you go there to buy a new copy or upgrade your copy of 1Password, you should be able to buy it from them as well. So buy it from wherever it is most convenient to buy it, but buy the book. I am positive that even if you are a longtime 1Password user, you will learn stuff that you weren't aware of. You will learn quicker, easier, more convenient ways to do stuff. And if you're just a beginner, or you're one of those people who's had it but hasn't really used it, there's tons of great stuff in here. You'll really appreciate it.
Joe, I'd be hard-pressed to know or try to decide which is more important, my good backup program or 1Password.
That's like, which is more important, your spouse or your child? I don't know that I could even make that decision. Of course, I guess if I really had to answer, I'd probably say backups, for the simple reason that there is usually some other way to recover your passwords. You can usually click an I forgot my password link and then go through some procedure to recover it. Of course, you should back up your passwords along with everything else. And in addition to backing up your 1Password data externally with Time Machine or Crash Plan or something like that, 1Password also has its own built-in backup system, so it keeps multiple copies of your data, and you can always go back to an earlier version if something should happen. So I wouldn't want to make that either-or choice, but they're both pretty important.
Very important. And of course, you have books on both of those, as well as other topics surrounding security and other topics just in general.
I get, I go to a user group to talk about something, and it gets a little bit old, I'm just taking questions from the audience, and somebody say, well, what about, this random thing about a Mac? And I'm like, yeah, I wrote a book on that. Oh yeah, what about this? Yeah, I wrote a book on that too. And I know it gets a little bit tiresome, just would you please just go read my FAQ before asking me any questions? Read all of my books. And I know that's sort of more of a time and financial burden than most people can bear. I do kind of have a lot of them, but I work hard on figuring out the stuff that confuses me, and that I know I would like to understand better. And so hopefully this helps smooth things over for other people too.
Yeah, and I think anybody that reads one of your books is going to come back and want to read others, simply because they start to understand the thoroughness, the methodology that you go through, that this is just not something that gets thrown on paper and pitched out there to the world. There's a lot of research and a lot of time that goes into these.
A great deal of research. And I might add, earlier this year we talked about Take Control of Your Passwords, which was a general book on password security applicable to any platform or any app. That makes a really nice companion to this particular book. If you wanted to throw in, I don't know, Take Control of Your Online Privacy, just to pick a title at random, if you were to buy 3 titles from TakeControlBooks.com, we have this little build your own bundle deal where you save 30%. So just thought I'd mention it. If you also need to, I don't know, back up your Mac, maintain your Mac, troubleshoot your Mac, speed up your Mac, a few other things, feel free to add as many books as you want. We'll make more.
Joe, you're a heck of a writer, but a terrible pitch man.
I know.
But
at least I'm not resorting to promising free chocolate chip cookies anymore like I did with my first book.
Well, fortunately, the books speak for themselves. So, Joe Kissell is the author of the new Take Control of 1Password, which of course covers 1Password 4, 1Password for iOS, 1Password for Windows to a lesser extent. Go check it out, and really check out all the other books that he mentioned because they're absolutely all worthwhile. Joe, probably in about 10 minutes you'll be back with your next book, I'm sure. But just in case that we don't get to talk to each other, go have a great trip in Hawaii.
Thanks very much.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices, the talk of the Mac community. We'll have links in the show notes to all of the books Joe mentioned, so you can go and build your own bundle or 2 or 3. Until the next time, thanks for watching.